Hello, Moon to Moon. It's Britain. And in this episode, I want to talk to you about a subject that I've addressed here and there along the way, along my pathway as an astrologer and business artist. I want to share on the topic beyond the horoscope economy. I'm going to tell you what I mean by that, but it's also shorthand for a larger invitation for anyone in any field, and not just in the field of astrology, to feel into and to wonder about, especially to wonder about what could be available to me in the field that I'm in that is beyond the economy of that field, as in ways to participate, ways to contribute in a larger marketplace that don't correspond to or adhere to the templates that are already present in the economy for that field. The business of supply and demand, of pricing and selling what you have to give here. So I want to just speak to my professional pathway and see what comes up and link what I'm saying to my conversations on shame and unshaming. And that would include how what I'm saying relates at all to my new offering, Unshaming Your Chart, which begins December 18th. So when I began to notice within me a desire to participate in the professional field of astrology, which was an absolutely terrifying desire to notice was present in my field. Here, I mean field like my larger energetic field. It was a very irrational choice. It was a desire that didn't correspond in a consistent way to the kinds of choices that I had been making my adult life. Namely, choices to support me in growing my name and reputation in the field of art history and in academic teaching, in museum environments, and in spaces where I had become trusted as someone who was really good at research and really good at building impressive bibliographies and all of the things that are based on evidence, the footnote evidence that proves that you did your work and you did all the reading and you know who links to who and who links to who in the lineages of thought, and you have found a place to contribute your unique thought, and this thought effort is valid, right? Like that's the whole goal. And I mean, I love being in academia most of the time, particularly on the scholar side. Being on the teaching side, even though teaching was always my number one dream, being on the teaching side was very disillusioning and very sad. Because academic institutions are sad places in many ways. And the business of funneling all these humans through survey courses so that they can pass their core requirements, while holding true in integrity to your passion. This was all just not a lot of fun, not a lot of fun, and really depleting and exhausting and sad. So, but I was in the midst of getting a PhD, which was going to, in my mind, like relieve me from getting out of the survey course economy. Like, please, maybe these 3 letters will make it possible that I can teach graduate students and upper level classes so that I don't have to keep teaching like hundreds of students, most of whom don't care about art and just want to know how they can get an A and get out of there. So when I found astrology, and I very rapidly became obsessed with it, and then I began to hear this little voice coming forward from inside me saying, I think you could teach this. Like, I think you could really enjoy doing this. Like, I think that there's going to be a pathway for you here. This was just like, whoa, I don't need another crisis. I'm already getting divorced. But at the same time, the fact that I was already getting divorced, like so much was collapsing and so much was disintegrating from my previous identities, that there actually was room for me to entertain yet another collapse. And so I'm entering this field as a complete newcomer, like complete newcomer. Um, and I just at the beginning was like, nobody needs to know about me. Of course, that was coming from a protector part of me that didn't want like people I socialize with to know about me, you know? I was like, nobody will know. It's just going to be word of mouth. And it'll all be online so that they'll not come from where I'm from, so that again, no one will know. We're going to keep this secret. At the beginning, I just wanted like a small practice where people would come and I could help them explore new ways of being that I saw for them in their charts. And that we would go like one placement at a time, and we would deep dive together one placement at a time over a long period of time. And I could suggest other teachers and I could suggest resources for energetically holding the huge shifts that we're going to be coming up with the encounter with the chart. And I was very excited because that would allow me to be able to support people in finding energy healers and psychics and rituals that were also so amazing for me at this time, and really, I was about to say gliding the way. I'm rolling with it, gliding the way for me to just like be on this new path. But that didn't last very long. That this like small word of mouth practice concept, because once I was like engaging with Instagram astrology and finding interesting voices and engaging with tarot Instagram and witchcraft Instagram, I started to just notice like I have things to say. Well, I have thoughts about this full moon. Like, well, I have thoughts about this transit. And so then I really wanted to become part of what we can call the public discourse, which relates to academia, which is a form of public discourse. It's a way of like gathering people together around a topic and throwing in your voice and participating with your voice and being like, I would like to throw something in. And it's very playful to be part of public discourse. It's brave because of course people can invalidate you and they can judge what you say, and they can disagree with you and find flaws in your argument, right? But at the same time, like it is through public discourse that we move things along, you know, in conversation. Like it's a participation. We do it together, but we each have to put our voice in order for that to happen, right? So I had some background in this, and it was my favorite thing about academia. It was like seminar room talking. So it's like I'm getting into this. So once I did that, then everything went public, and my whole social network could see what I was doing. And so then it was like, fuck it, I'm really just going in, because what can I do? Back off? No, that's not going to be what happens. So now I'm in, I'm playing along, I'm participating, and it starts to be clear over time that there's a few ways to make money in astrology. Like, if I'm really going to entertain this, okay, like my husband, ex-husband, now becoming ex-husband, is no longer taking care of me. I have to pay bills. How do you make money doing this? Like, okay, so prices, you know, like I'm starting to think about things like, okay, so I'm going to have people give me something, because I can't just do this because it's fun. I have to make money, you know? So, what are the options? You know, so the options presented themselves. The options are you do one-on-one readings, and readings usually involve some kind of study of the chart, whether we're going to do a forecast, or I'm going to introduce you to your chart, or we're going to do a longer term deep dive. It's a one-on-ones. And then there's writing and speaking horoscopes and forecasts. This is like the like knowledge contribution sector that you can participate in, and magazines and outlets can invite you to represent as their astrology in-house person, or write a guest piece freelancing. Your ability to forecast or horoscope is what the community at large, the culture at large expects. That's what astrologers do. And then teachers teach like intro to astrology, next level, and then there's like kind of just like a university, you can have specific seminars, like you can learn skills around like, oh, no, here's a class on progressions. So I'm looking at this sort of like, where do I fit in? What do I want to do? And you know, at the beginning, I'm pretty much just like, oh, these are the options, so I need to figure out how to fit into these options. But pretty early, I felt a resistance to like figuring out how to put myself into a box with like a label on it that signaled like horoscopes found here, or like year ahead readings found here. I did this though. Like I did do it because I need to grow my name, get work, get paid, grow awareness around my voice so that more people will come by readings from me. And eventually did teach my first 101 type class. And so over time, I was learning how to fit into these particular signs, and actually loved doing readings. I loved doing horoscopes. I loved doing forecasts. And I've loved teaching traditional one-on-one courses. The problem for me was never that I didn't like it, or that I didn't think I was good at it, because I felt very confident that I was like fulfilling my own standard for skill that pleases me, which is a fancy, a funny way of just saying like I felt like I was very competent and more than competent, extremely skilled. And that was not the issue. The issue was that I felt that there was something going on that made it so that like all of this love language, all of this beauty, all of this rich, potent, delicious, like waves of this goodness, this music were moving outward, and there was a resistance to I felt resistance to fully receiving and knowing how to receive and hold everything that was coming out of me. And I'm not saying it's just like me. I imagine many astrologers feel this too. And it's like, what is this? And it was over time that I began to feel that there was a resistance to receiving so much of what comes through astrology as a powerful love music, because there is a deeply conditioned, widespread, it's everywhere, widespread, en masse resistance to giving oneself permission to receive all of that love. Like a sense that the right thing to do would be to question my right to hold this, to push it away, to question its validity, because any valid thing would tell me what's wrong with me, not tell me how the beauty of me, that that this couldn't like somehow be trusted. And so I began to shape my language to like feeling into how to support the receiver, whether it's one-on-one, whether it's like a mass blast, like the receiver of a podcast episode that I can't actually see, but I know it's going to someone, or to like a student in a class in a room full of people and we're talking together and we're going back and forth. Whatever the space, it doesn't matter. What can I do to help this like land, you know? What are some ways that I could talk about this and practices to teach with it, so that what is being passed along can absorb, right? Like it kind of reminds me about when I learned that I'm not someone who like is confident in biological processes and plants and like the science of plants, but I remember someone blowing my mind learning that petrichor, that smell that we smell when it hasn't rained in a really long time, has something to do with the plants sensing when a rain is coming and releasing these oils to help them be more receptive, like flowering open to help them feel more receptive to receiving the nourishment of the rain that they have been longing for. And this is something helpful to humans, that we're like, we are part of nature. We belong to nature too. And the fact that we can pick this up in our olfactory abilities is part of how we've survived, because when we can smell it, we can get the information that rain's coming. So fascinating and amazing. And that this rain is best for the plants when it's gentle. And because when it's gentle, it's able to receive the nourishment. If there's a deluge, all those oils like get pushed down back into the earth, and the plants are able to receive the nourishment as well. I could be distorting the biology. Stay with me to the larger point. The larger point is that we can only like receive so much, we can only receive so much according to our capacity to receive. We can only receive so much pleasure, so much like good feeling. Same with, we can only hold so much difficult feeling. We can only hold so much. We have these thresholds for capacity based on trauma, so that because we learn to protect ourselves to not feel. And we live in a culture that devalues feeling and hasn't helped us become emotionally wise, resilient, intelligent peoples, because there's like this suspicion about feelings and subjectivity. Okay. Mysticism and the intuitive pathway is a feeling pathway. And this is what my work is interested in. And so as feelers, we learn that feeling more means feeling more, and feeling more grief is going to help us feel more pleasure. And the more we have capacity for receiving pleasure, the more we will also feel our grief, and we will also feel our rage. And so unshaming is a process that does bring us into contact with our feelings. And part of the beauty of this, like what's the intelligence of having to feel these hard feelings, is we get to tap at growing our capacity for feeling and being with uncomfortable things, because this also increases our capacity for all feeling. And so we increase our capacity to receive love, sweetness, honey, reciprocity, beauty between people, beauty between us and the animated world and other sentient beings, including beings that are in the unseen realms and on the other side that we can't rationally see, but we feel to be there. And the more we practice becoming feelers and attuning to the subtleties of the feeling realm, the more we feel support from the other side and really know that it's there. And the more we feel supported, the more we can feel trusting in being here and following the feeling pathway wherever it's guiding us, through desire, but also through our frustrations, because our frustrations and irritations are also important feelings for helping guide our way in living from the dream field. So I have found to be true. And so my frustrations with I could spend hours of this week creating horoscopes. I could dedicate my podcast to creating transit discussions. I very well can do that. I really can do a month ahead or a week ahead. Yes, I can do this. It's not that I cannot do this. It's that I just feel like there's something else we're supposed to be talking about, y'all. Because I don't know that we're really receiving this fully. And so my teachings began to shift more into teaching skills and practices, particularly at at an energy healing level, at an intuitive healing level, in cultivating magic and ritual practices, ceremonial practices, for supporting individuals in becoming more available to receive what is true, to receive awareness about what feels true, to notice what feels true, to name what feels true, and to validate what feels true. And being in the game of what feels true is a different skill set and a different way of talking than a lot of what I was seeing in the economy for astrology as a field. My teachings of astrology were, I was like, always felt like I was in a battle with the part of me that just wanted to teach it the way it felt true to me, and the part of me that was like trying to sound like, look like what people I admired were doing as they were teaching astrology, or how they talk about astrology. And just like, oh, I just wish I could do it the way I want to do it. Like, oh, wait, why am I not doing that? That would be shame, because it's like, because why would anyone want it the way I want it? That's shame. Because good astrologers do it this way. That's shame. Like, trying to be perfect enough, trying to be expert enough, trying to like get it right enough, trying to sound smart enough. All of that is shame. And it's a huge distraction from what this other part of me was like, Britton, I want you to validate this. Validate what feels true for you as what's important for us to be talking about here. Validate what you're feeling is true for you about what you're noticing with your students is helpful versus just like what's exhausting. Is it helpful or is it overwhelming? Is it helpful or does it create competitive pictures between the students? And this started to create this moment of like kind of just pushing beyond the edges of what I thought I could do as a business artist who speaks astrology for witchcraft in our world, And same with horoscopes and forecasts. I love them. I love to receive these for myself. I love to be a consumer, but at the same time, I'm also really invested in focusing on what's going on in me and letting that be the guiding data. And then in my work, I'm focused on what is it that I want to talk about and validating that rather than spending a whole lot of time trying to get my horoscopes and forecast in order. And this required working through scarcity, because there are scarce parts of me that have been like, you're not going to make any money if you don't do forecasts. Like, why would anyone want to listen to you? Why would anyone want to pay you if you're not currently providing that service? Because this is the service that we are seen as providing. If you're not meeting that service, then you're going to become irrelevant and nobody's going to want to buy from you. Like, those are the voices, And so that for me was a behind the scenes unshaming practice of working with my inner children and working with the younger parts of me that are like, I can't provide for myself, or like, I can't figure it out unless I do it that way. I'm going to be left behind. Nobody's going to care. That's the skill sets that I learned for myself to move through all of those fears and to move through the voices, which I have still all the time. It's ongoing. Those are the skills then that I teach at the forefront of my courses, because it's these practices that support us in finding our way. I mean, what's miraculous about unshaming is that no one can unshame for you. I, Britton LaRue, cannot unshame for you. I can't do it for you. This, to me, is a liberation for both of us. Like, I don't want to be responsible for your unshaming, because I'll go crazy feeling overwhelmed with that responsibility when I know very well at a deep down place in my heart, I actually can't do it for you. I can't do it for my daughters. I can't do it for my mother. I can't do it for my boyfriend. Everybody is sovereign, doing their own. What I can do is speak this language of unshaming constantly and bring it into spaces for those who are interested in engaging with the practices for themselves and giving this to themselves, because it is the miracle of giving it to yourself that actually creates the magic. And everything that I do is interested in giving the client, giving the student, giving the listener, giving the reader the self-responsibility to go and practice and do the things, because that's where the magic comes through for you. And I don't want to deprive people of the magic. But these skills are like they want navigation, you know, like they're very subtle and energetic. Unshaming is. And so like it really helps to have a teacher, and it really helps to have classmates. It really helps to be in the language like a lot of the time, so that it's like in your field, and be able to ask questions and be able to be like, this came up and I'm kind of stuck, you know, because it's like, well, what I'm feeling is, you know, in this scenario. And as you practice, like I bumped into something, what does it feel like to you, Britton, you know, or whatever, I can help show you how to shift the energy for yourself, so that the more times you practice these scenarios, the more you start to be someone who's shifting it yourself. Because it's kind of like something you've already done before, that you shifted yourself before. And so now you have like an embodied connection to what it feels like to make those shifts for yourself. But you can't just unshame intellectually, you know, it's like we can mentally get into it. It's a very exciting place to get into, because it involves paradox and contradiction and all these really fun things for our brain to be delighted and impressed with, like the gameliness. And it's not just a mental process. Unshaming is a whole body process. It's a many self process. It involves your somatic system and nervous system. It involves your feelings and your feeling self, which is also complicated because we receive feelings through our psychic system and in many parts of our body. And so the subtleties of the feeling realm you study for years. Like it's not just something that you can think about and assume that because you felt, you know, joy, you know how to feel joy, that you'll just know how to unshame through your feelings. Like it's complicated, especially because unshaming brings us into contact with our egoic system and the way we've set up how we see reality in ways that we call our personality, but in many ways are scaffolds that we've built to only see certain things and not see other things. And so the subtleties of working with unshaming are when you start to notice, like, oh, this is like a part of me that I normally don't see, but they're the ones that are creating that part, that scaffold of reality. And so they're the one I'm going to work with right now. And then your reality pictures start to really change as you unspell the spell of shame with all of these different parts that come from all of these different moments and experiences of of the past parts of you that also engage with past life parts of you. It gets real mystical. Unshaming is very, very, very mystical. And so what I started to realize as I was moving more and more into this realm, even before I use the word unshaming, because my workbook's Living the Signs, they're like you can feel me doing unshaming the signs in those books, even though I hadn't found that language. You can feel me getting there. I'm just not fully there yet. I was still kind of not understanding how I was going to get out of the templates of typical teaching. And that is an edge I'm constantly walking up against impossibility picture that like you can't do that, or it's just the impossibility of not being able to see and trying to like guide myself in the dark to the next thing, but I can't even see it yet, but I know it's there. That's also working with the unknown and the feeling self, working with mysticism. And so I realized the last couple of years that what I really am is a mystic, and I speak astrology. The astrology supports me in speaking my mysticism. And unshaming is just taught so well through astrology. It's a mystical practice. Like you wouldn't necessarily think when you hear about unshaming, especially if you heard about it from like a psychotherapy lens, you might not immediately think that's a mystical practice. But what I've come to see is this is mysticism, because we're working with the many self and the multidimensionality of who we are. A lot of it is not fully seen by us. And the mystical life is a life that works with the unseen and navigates the unknown, which is actually what there is. So to me, mysticism is a way of life that helps me be here on the planet Earth and decide, like, I guess I'm going to live here. Well, maybe I'll participate in this funny place where the first part of my life, here I am, this like super Pisces. It was kind of just like, this part of me was like living energetically up above my body, like, I don't know that I fully want to live here. I don't know about this place. It's kind of a weird place, this earth. But now that I am committed to living here, my stewardship just naturally grows from my decision to live here, because I made the decision to live here. My art, which is my work and which is also my service and is also how I make money, they grow from my choice to be here and take being here now very seriously. And what feels so powerful to have as a person who's living here is the ability to work with the feeling realm and the unseen realms, which is mysticism. And astrology is just naturally, like, it to me is how humans attempt to speak mystery. That's what it is to me. It's not, to me, a personality system. The more I get into this, the more I'm like, oh yeah, astrology is a personality system. I forgot that. Like, to me, it's a language that we light upon to attempt to describe mystery. And we have built it over centuries and centuries, and it is an animated living system. And so thus it changes according to the humans who are engaging with it. It's not a static system. It's not a stuck system. And it's not one that you can do right or wrong based on how well you adhere to how people used to do it. Like, I love learning techniques. I love being supported by ancient thinkers and um, astrologers from many, many years ago. And I'm not beholden to them completely because I live here now, speaking it to other humans who live here now. And how can this support us being here now? The astrology that I'm interested in is an astrology that's alive. It knows who we are. It knows our world. It's right here. It's in everything with us. It's not just up there. It's here too, because we're part of the cosmos. And it shapeshifts according to how it can be supportive to us in navigating what is here in our timeline. What world did we embody into, you know? That's the world that I want to bring astrology to, according to like what is the most alive, felt way of engaging with it so that it can be receptive, so that it can be received by those who encounter it in ways that can be completely shape-shifting for them and to mutate them and to catalyze them into more aliveness, into more excitement about participating in being here on the planet Earth. So what I wondered, to get back to the point, of this is, I wondered if there was a market, right? Like, is there a world for me in the marketplace beyond the horoscope economy? And as much as I love horoscopes, there's something about, only basically having 3 choices for career paths in astrology that feels kind of shamey to me, because it feels like this is what the economy has tolerated of this wisdom tradition, that it invalidates the overculture I'm speaking to. And what could we do with astrology, and how can we speak, sing, dance with, create art with astrology in our timeline in the most nourishing ways for us to receive, in ways that don't conform to those gigs that are tolerated by overculture, but actually grow from an intuitive place of excitement and desire inside of us. And so I hope that this was supportive, especially for all y'all out there who are wanting to participate in astrology and find a side gig or a full-time gig with this language, but you just don't feel like you fit with the current templates. And I know a lot of y'all listen to me because I hear about it. I'm so glad to be an inspiration for those of you who didn't think you could find a home here and now wonder if you can, because you can, like, it's not a thing that you could be excluded from. Okay, I'm going to say that again. Astrology is not a thing that you can be excluded from. However, what I found to be true is it takes a lot of tenacity and audacity to keep talking and keep talking and keep talking the way it feels true for you. And you're working with all of those younger selves who are really afraid that people aren't going to like it, that nobody's ever going to understand you, they're going to judge you. We have these invalidating voices. And that's why unshaming is so important, because it helps you see that that's not the whole of you, that invalidating voice. It's not even the truth of reality. but it is a part of you to hold and witness and have compassion for, so that you can keep at it with the tenacity and the audacity to speak with your voice and let it get louder and louder and louder. So those who are craving your particular way of engaging with this wisdom tradition can find you, and them finding you then validates their own unique way of wanting to engage with this language. And so we support each other through our audacity, and unshaming helps us come into more and more audacity. And it's a polarity. Audacity helps us with unshaming. That's part of what I teach. So I would love to see you in unshaming your chart. If you're at any level of encountering astrology in your charts, whether you're brand new or you're a professional astrologer, it doesn't matter. This is the kind of thing I want to get into, not so much like, oh, you have to get these certain things. We're going to be engaging with and co-creating together this different approach. And I'm so excited to see who comes, because I know that every time I teach this, we're going to be expanding the gnosis together. We're going to be building the curriculum together, because I'm working with the unknown here. I'm in the dark. I'm just trusting that this wants to exist and that there are people who want to get into it with me. And that's why I'm speaking about it, so that those who feel called know where the doorway is. So if you're interested in unshaming your chart, inviting you to go to my website, brittonlarue.com. Under courses, you'll see it first, Unshaming Your Chart. We begin December 18th. We're going to start in earnest with charts in January. So if you miss December 18th, you can just catch up with that one replay and meet us in January. I'm so honored and excited to be doing this, and I look forward to seeing you there with me if you're feeling called. All right, thank you so much. If you've never rated or reviewed Moon to Moon, I hope that you will do so. If you're watching this on YouTube, I hope you will give it a like, maybe subscribe, do the things you do for YouTube. I'm new to this place. And yeah, just feeling super grateful. Thank you so much. These are incredibly wild times. This that I'm teaching feels incredibly important for these incredibly wild times. It feels like we are moving into more and more unknown. The more we have mysticism, the more comfortable we can be with how gnarly the unknown can feel sometimes, and how incredible it feels sometimes. Thank you.